maybe I'll sit down. Is it okay?
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, I feel so proud and happy to be here with so many friends, some of whom I knew so many years ago that I've almost forgotten who they were. Oh yes, and yes, I remember. Because during the 40 years that TAPOL has been in existence, of course, we worked with many people as volunteers and supporters and so on. So what I'm going to say now is probably not new to many of you here, because I think many of you here understand full well what happened in 1965. But I would say that when I first went to Indonesia, which was in the 1950s, I knew virtually nothing about Indonesia. It was not a British colony, and therefore we didn't know much about it. We knew, countries know about their colonies, they don't know about other countries in the world. So I was not hardly aware of the existence of Indonesia. So I had to get used to living in a new country and learning a new language. And so for several years I was working with my husband Budiardjo, and everything went fine until in '65 an incident happened when some generals were kidnapped and killed, and the army decided that the PKI, the Indonesian Communist Party, was responsible for that. Now I think we have to realize that at that time the Indonesian Communist Party was one of the biggest communist parties in the world. It had millions of members, and it also had millions of supporters and sympathizers and so on. So when the event that happened in '65 with the killing of the generals, the PKI was blamed. It was as if everybody was involved in this incident. And I myself was a member of an organization called Himpunan Sarjana Indonesia, the Indonesian Academics Association, which was also seen as being in some linked closely with the PKI. So our members, like many other organizations, were either killed or put in prison. So so I spent 3 years in prison because I was a member of the HSI, the HSI, with about I don't know, 7 or 8 dozen women. Some of them who were actually no more than children, who hardly understood politics at all, and they were just there. And the claim was that we were all terlibat. The word, Indonesian word terlibat means involved. We were involved in this incident. But fortunately, I was able to get my release, and my release was a rather complex. It happened by rather complex means that I won't try to explain here, except to say that it involved a British lawyer who was instrumental in sorting out this problem. And fortunately, this lawyer is actually here with us today, Sarah, somewhere. I'm sure you can see her somewhere. So she was really instrumental in helping me to get out of prison. And so we have remained, as you can imagine, we've remained friends ever since. After I came out of prison, I went to England, and we started campaigning, and we set up an organization called the British Campaign for the Release of Indonesian Political Prisoners. And we called ourselves TAPOL, TAPOL Tahanan Politik. I think we helped to normalize this word. This TAPOL has now become a very normal part of the Indonesian vocabulary, because there are always political prisoners being held by whatever regime, it was Suharto or whatever regime it is, or East Timor. So the way I got out of prison, I felt when I left the prison, the women I was with, they said, "Oh, please, you see, we were all there without a chance of being tried or anything like that." So these women were saying to me, they had some idea that I was going to be released, and they said, "Please, if you get abroad, do something and help us. Please help us, do something." Because in Indonesia it was impossible to campaign about this. So that's how we decided in Indonesia, in the UK in 1973, that was a year after my release, to set up this organisation which we call TAPOL. And I think we have to be credited with making this word very well known and popular in Indonesia. I know for a fact that Indonesia is, people around the world are very unfamiliar with this country called Indonesia. And I hope we know, of course, during the killings in 1965, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of people were killed or sent off to exile in remote prison camps like Buru and other places, very far from their families. So I think the word TAPOL, I think we help to popularize this world. Because the fact is that Indonesia has already, for so many years, has had political prisoners. And Suharto, who was the president at the time, he was also president at the time when Indonesia occupied East Timor, during the course of that occupation, something like 1/3 of the population were killed or died. I always hoped that something would happen before he died, but he was never brought to justice for all the terrible things. He had so much blood on his hands, but he died as if he was a hero in Indonesia, for which a thing that I deeply regret. But I strongly welcome the fact that a friend here, Joshua Oppenheimer, has made this film, which we will see together, to give you some idea of how widespread the killings were and how the killers were trained to kill simply because somebody was from the PKI or from in some way associated with it. So I hope you will gain a lot of information from this film, and I'm very glad to welcome you here. And on the 40th anniversary, I didn't think our organisation would last so long, but there you are. That's my story.